Welcome to Under the Spotlight. Right here on Just Jamaica TV. Thanks to those who have already joined our channel. And we look forward to those who will in the days ahead. As we turn on the spotlight, here is your host, Stafford Perkins.
And one and all, hey, welcome to today's live. Today, as I promised a few days ago, that I wanted to look at spirituality in particularly as it relates to the African experience. They said your spirit is yourself, and this body or frame or house that you're looking at, it's really just a housing, somewhere for the spirit to dwell. And your spirit is everything. Your spirit is you. Depends on your state of mind. You will be in a good frame of mind. Your spirit will feel great and you'll feel happy. I'm happy in myself. I'm happy in my spirit is so happy today. I feel blessed today. All kinds of nice things come. People will go to some kind of praise and worship or some kind of meditation, and depends on the experience they have received or are receiving out of that encounter with other human beings. It has to do with our spirit. Well, our spirit is also ourselves in that we create as a group, we create as an individual, and we also create as a group. We create as a country, as a people. We go through struggles as a people. Individually, we go through struggles. Some people, we notice that of late, there have been quite a few cases of people taking their own lives. And when you get some feedback about what really happened, what were those people going through, we tend to get a report that they were going through some kind of stress, some kind of problem. So the spirit wasn't well. And if your spirit is not well, you tend to become overwhelmed. And even going further into that, if your spirit is being abused, if you're physically being abused and mentally being abused, your spirit itself will even be affected. And of course, we Africans, African people of African extract, we are known to be spiritual people. Other people, they get involved in religion and they will speak of the spirit. But African people are the happiest when they're in a situation where they is listening to some Bob Marley music, some Peter Tosh music, Burning Spear, or whomever. And I don't want to sound like I'm even not a woman. You listen to some early Marcia Griffiths and some early Rita Marley, and some of the younger singers that we were John Nine and so forth. These people, when they sing, sometimes they touch you in a way that it puts you in a very good place. But if somebody wants to try to punish you and to bend you to their own will and whims and fancies, they will hurt you, brutalize you, do you terrible things. And for you to get some kind of relief from the taunting and the abusing, you sometimes will just submit and just give in, and you lose that sense of fight, the spirit to fight. When you're in battle, you have to have a sense of wanting to fight and be in that battle and winning that war. And so all those things lead up to who you are a soldier who goes into battle and faces the most ferocious barrage of bombs and rockets and what they call these things these days, drones, and they would hear all the noise of war, the madness of war, and they could just stand in that battle and not flinch. You could be thrown in a bamboo jail, like was that man's name, John, who passed, that congressman, and he stayed in a prison, in a concrete prison, well, not concrete, like a bamboo prison, John McCain. And he was there for 10 years, 15 years, however long he was there, but to be in that place and be taunted. But he had a very strong, he was a strong-willed person. He was able to survive, and he came out. More than likely, yes, he was affected by a lot of things because his life had some twists and turns, which would indicate to a psychologist or a psychiatrist that, yes, he was hurt. He was hurt from that experience, but because he had a very fairly strong spirit, very strong thing, he survived, and he went on to become a senator. So, all the kind of stuff that with us. So us Africans, black people, we went through something where we were robbed of our humanity, we were robbed of ourselves, and we were forced to accept and to submit to the ways of others. Today, I want to start this program, and if I'm correct, let me just push this forward, and I'm going to present to you somebody, a man, Leopold, they call him King Leopold II, was just about the most awful human being that ever walked the face of the earth. One would think it was Hitler, but this one was Hitler to the 10th power. And what he did, to get around or get past the what they call the algorithm, I'm going to use the term, he unalived over 13 million Africans in the Congo alone, because he craved the riches of that vast land space. And he did them all kind of unspeakable, all kind of atrocities and unspeakable acts against humanity, against those Africans. 13 million of them, and a lot of them, more than probably 13 million, were left back, maimed by this man, because that's what he wanted. If you didn't produce the amount of rubber from the rubber trees that were growing in the jungle, he would inflict these unspeakable acts against the people. I'm going to put a little clip up there with him. Before I do that, let me just call and say, if somebody is interested in this topic, I'm going to ask you to, hit that subscribe button, hit the share button, make a comment, and let's see what we can get from this tonight. All right, so here we go. We're going to go to the first clip with the man they call King Leopold. And there's a story behind King Leopold. I might try to do some of his thing too, but let's listen to him and what he was, when he was telling his people, his soldiers, how to make the Africans bend. Because one of the things he pointed out, he taught them, he said, listen, for you to get those people to submit, you will have to take away their spirituality. The reason I'm looking at this also today is because we see where Jamaica is faced with making a decision. Maybe the courts are supposed to make this decision. And it has to do with the thing they call Obeah. Obeah is one of those practices, African practices, or how people deal with the spirit itself. And they would, people practice these things. They would become healers, medicine men, we call them bush doctors, but it's the traditional African way of healing, which they took away from us. They didn't want to see us being ourselves, so they took away things like our own medicine. There's a thing I ran into one day where they say that women have a way of tying their, what we call tie head, putting their scarves on, where they tie the scarves on their head. In the African way, and it has been passed on to the younger generation. Some of them don't even realize it. But the way women tie their hair, sometimes it's the mood that they're in. If men would understand some of these things, the way a woman ties her head on a particular day, they would save themselves, men would save themselves a lot of trouble. You have to try to understand what mood that woman is in when she tied that scarf. And if you go to her and mess with her when she is probably not in that frame of mind to be putting up with what you would consider nonsense, you're going to get it. And this is for the men. Just watch black women, when they tie their hair, because they inherit things that were passed on from generations. Generations. Inside of us, the spirit is our continuation of our ancestors, those who came before us. So, all of this, it leads back to the spirit. So let me go to a man who decided that he figured out how to destroy black people. We are at this point today where we are about to, I'm not even sure where it goes and how it comes, but something to do with the Supreme Court to make a decision what to do with Obeah. Obeah is a spiritual, it's a spiritual activity. They have forced on us this Christian way with this white blue-eyed guy who they call him and say he's Jesus and all of us must pray to him. They have whipped that into us. So this is what it is. Our culture, the African culture, is up against the white man's culture. We have been beaten into submission on this one, to the point where black people are so fooled and so taken out and taken over that they see this man as their savior. How can it be? How can be your slave master be your savior? Well, here we go, and I'm going to bring to you this man who they call King Leopold to get us to see and hear some more of King Leopold's thinking. I'll try to go over it some, so that maybe if it goes too fast and we don't catch what he's saying, we might even play it a second time. But listen to this.
Allow you to find texts ordering and encouraging your followers to love poverty, like happier are the poor because they will inherit the heaven, and it's very difficult for the rich to enter the kingdom of God. You have to detach from them and make them disrespect everything which gives courage to affront us. I make reference to their mystic system and their war fetish warfare protection, which they pretend not to want to abandon, and you must do everything in your power to make it disappear. Your action will be directed essentially to the younger ones, for they won't revolt when the recommendation of the priest is contradictory to their parents' teachings. The children have to learn to obey what the missionary recommends, who is the father of their soul. You must singularly insist on their total submission and obedience, avoid developing the spirit in the schools, teach students to read and not to reason. There, dear patriots, are some of the principles that you must apply. You will find many other books which will be given to you at the end of this conference.
All right, let me pull it out for now. So that picture you see there is that of Leopold, King Leopold of Belgium. He was a king, a so-called king, because Belgium is just a little tiny little place. And he became, you see what they call the Belgian, at one point it was called the Belgium Congo. It is now the Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC. But when he was around, when that guy was around, that demon, when he was on earth, when they were sharing up Africa, most of the other European powers who were getting a piece of Africa, when they literally shared it up like they were sharing up a pie. You get this piece, you get this piece, you get this piece. There was even one woman who was given a country, what is now a country, a piece of Africa. That's a gift she was given. He got that Congo. Now the Congo is so huge. The Congo probably is about 2 times the size of America. I'm going to check it before we get off of here and I'll give you the exact measurement, our size of the country. But he decided that he wanted the Belgian Congo for himself, which, what was called the Congo. And it might have even been called some other name along the line. But at that point, it was called the Congo. And then they called it the Belgian Congo. There are actually about 3 places named Congo. You have, you have the Republic, I think was the Republic of Congo, something like that. And then you have the Democratic Republic of Congo. And then you have another one, I think they call it Congo Brazzaville or something. But 3 pieces of land, but huge, massive pieces of land. And those places are tremendously rich with natural resources. And so the Europeans learned about what was going on in the Congo and they went out to take it for themselves. He requested it because that place had a lot of, what they call those, some of those sicknesses that really bad, the sets a fly, which is a sleep, it gives you that sleep sickness. You will sleep yourself out of this world. And he got it. And then what he did, he got his soldiers and he went in there and decided that he wanted it for himself. And what he did was to send his soldiers in there, taught them how to grab these people, because a lot of times they would be going at, tribal war or whatever the wars they would be going at. And they would capture one side, would capture the other, and they'd hand them over, and then they use those same people as slaves to go into the jungle. They discovered that this thing called rubber was in that place, and he demanded of the people to bring out a certain amount, an excessive amount of rubber every day. And if they didn't meet the task of bringing it out, he would really hurt them and hurt them badly. I want to do another clip on this, where somebody is explaining who this guy was.
From King Leopold II of Belgium to Colonial Missionaries, 1883. Part 1. Reverends, fathers, and dear compatriots, the task that is given to fulfill is very delicate and requires much tact. You will go certainly to evangelize, but your evangelization must inspire above all Belgium interests. Your principal objective in the Congo is never to teach the Nibs to know God, this they know already. They speak and submit to a Mungu, one Zambi, one Zakamba, and what else I don't know. They know that to kill, to sleep with someone else's wife, to lie and to insult is bad. You are not going to teach them what they know already. Your essential role is to facilitate the task of administrators and industrials, which means you will go to interpret the gospel in the way it will be the best to protect your interests. For these things, you have to keep watch on disinteresting our savages from the richness that is plenty in their underground to avoid them get interested in it, and make you murderous and dream one day of overthrowing you.
Your knowledge of the gospel will allow you to find texts ordering and encouraging your followers to love poverty, like happier are the poor because they will inherit the heaven, and it's very difficult for the rich to enter the kingdom of God. You have to detach from them and make them disrespect everything which gives courage to affront us. I make reference to their mystic system and their war fetish, warfare protection, which they pretend not to want to abandon, and you must do everything in your power to make it disappear. Your action will be directed essentially to the younger ones, for they won't revolt when the recommendation of the priest is contradictory to their parents' teachings. The children have to learn to obey what the missionary recommends, who is the father of their soul.
All right, so for
Sing every day that it's impossible for the rich to enter heaven. Make them pay tax each week at Sunday Mass. Use the money supposed for the poor to build flourishing business centers. Institute a confessional system, which allows you to be good detectives, denouncing anyone that has a different consciousness contrary to that of the decision maker. Teach them to forget their heroes and to adore only ours. Never present a chair to any that comes to visit you. Don't give him more than one cigarette. Never invite him for dinner even if he gives you a chicken every time you arrive at his house. The above speech, which shows the real intention of the Christian missionary journey in Africa, was exposed to the world by Mr. Mukwani Bukoko, born in the Congo in 1915, and who in 1935, while working in the Congo, bought a second-hand Bible from a Belgian priest who forgot the speech in the Bible.
See that? So yeah, I have to play these things more than once because when you listen to it, it goes by, because we have one concept in our heads. We see these people as good, but if you listen to that, and it's some of it is repeated from the first clip. we see where the order that was given to these priests who went here to brainwash the Africans. He said these people, they have their ways, they have their religion, they have their things that give them power. We have to find a way to get them not to want to believe in what they know and what they've been believing in for all whatever the existence of man. We want to give to them this thing that we have, this construct of this Jesus. We want to give it to them. We're going to beat it, whatever, their own spiritual. These are people who are living in within, even close within the Congo, where the average man cannot. The white man couldn't go in there because you would be bitten by mosquitoes, by snakes, by all kinds of things. They would die within a short time. So they forced them, grab their family, hold the family ransom, beat them, maim them, left them without limbs, arms especially. And then we say they're doing that in the name of this thing here, this white Jesus. They were doing it in his name. They said what their religion is nothing compared to this construct, which that construct, that's Jesus' construct, was from a man, a king, a Roman emperor named Justinian, gave them this thing. There probably was a story of a Jesus, but certainly was, in reality, that walked someplace in Jerusalem or wherever, but he certainly was not a white man. But they created that thing, went into all over the earth and started maiming people, destroying people's cultures, destroying their religions, until if you don't believe and if you don't take on to this religion, forget about your own religion, something that has been carrying you for years, for centuries, for millenniums. And people, to the point they are so brainwashed, you can't help it. You can't blame people for being brainwashed. That is what was done to their ancestors, generations upon generations ago. And so to just come, just the same way how they brutalize our ancestors to get them to submit and to buy into this construct of that their God is the better God and is the right God. And they do this while committing some of the most unspeakable atrocities. And then you are to love him. And he said, look, get them to believe that what they have is worthless. He said, if you go to a man's house every day and you get a chicken from him, or however often you pass, you go to his house, and you get a chicken, you take the chicken. But if he comes to your house, first thing, don't give him a seat because he's not worthy. And two, this is a priest now, don't give him a seat, he must remain standing. Don't give him something to eat, even though he's the one who gave you the chicken so you could make a pot, you could eat some food. He said, don't give him. This is the contempt in which we were held. So now when I hear people in Jamaica are ready to say they're going to protest because they want to stop, because somebody is looking to see how can we legalize a spiritual practice done by spiritualists, which we black people are spiritualists. Because they say, all right, they've taken it to court for the court to say, this is now legal because the British man, the white man, the colonialist, he took away your right to worship the way you want to worship and gave you his way and say, that is the way you are to worship. Don't stop worshiping the way you know. And people are practicing and want to go back to practice the way how their forefathers practiced. Not religion, because we're not religious people. Or they practice spirituality. Because if you go into a black church and you hear them singing and going on in their own ways, it's a totally different experience than if you go into a white church. A white church will be very quiet. Everybody's seated quietly. But in the black church, it's just the souls pouring out their souls and celebrating. So they said, hey, this is the way we are going to treat them because they're not worthy to be treated as human beings. He called them, what did he call them? Demons. I'm going to go back to the first one because he called them a name.
Will allow you to find texts ordering and encouraging your followers to love poverty, like happier are the poor because they will inherit the heaven, and it's very difficult for the rich to enter the kingdom of God. You have to detach from them and make them disrespect everything which gives courage to affront us. I make reference to their mystic system and their war fetish warfare protection, which they pretend not to want to abandon, and you must do everything in your power to make it disappear. Your action will be directed essentially to the younger ones, for they won't revolt when the recommendation of the priest is contradictory to their parents' teachings. The children have to learn to obey what the missionary recommends, who is the father of their soul. You must singularly insist on their total submission and obedience. Avoid developing the spirit in the schools. Teach students to read and not to reason. There, dear patriots, are some of the principles that you must apply. You will find many other books which will be given to you at the end of this conference.
All right. We're done. You see, this thing here, this is not somebody making up that talking here, that whatever that person's reading or is reciting. That is King Leopold's words, and it's written and it's there to be read in books. And if you go on the internet and ask for what King Leopold said to his people, to his soldiers, to his priests who he sent, because one of the things that they use when they are forcefully converting you to their religion, because we deal with, black people deal with spirituality, they deal with religion. One of the things they do to you is to send the priests, to send those so-called priests, the ones who, what they call in some society, to come to proselytize, to come push their narrative on you, to say, this is what you should believe in, this is the right way, you're raised the wrong way. Don't believe in what you believe in. Don't believe what your generation upon generation. The Africans were there taking care of their own business. They were able to feed themselves. Nobody. It is the Europeans who came and took away their ability, stopped them from owning their own property, took away their properties, shared up to Europe, somebody who lived thousands of miles away. And then you're supposed to work for them and you own nothing. And until you come to that place where they call penury, poverty, poor, you can't even afford to buy yourself a dinner or make yourself a dinner because they took away your land, they took away your whatever you have and left you to live in squalor. And then they say that is the black way. I'm going to go to that because there's a word I'm wanting to hear him say again. And just add this back. I have other things
from King Leopold II of Belgium to Colonial Missionaries, 1883. Part 1. Reverends, fathers, and dear compatriots, the task that is given to fulfill is very delicate and requires much tact. You will go certainly to evangelize, but your evangelization must inspire above all Belgium interests. Your principal objective in the Congo is never to teach the Nibs to know God, this they know already. They speak and submit to a Mungu, one Zambi, one Zakamba, and what else I don't know. They know that to kill, to sleep with someone else's wife, to lie and to insult is bad. You are not going to teach them what they know already. Your essential role is to facilitate the task of administrators and industrials, which means you will go to interpret the gospel in the way it will be the best to protect your interests. For these things, you have to keep watch on disinteresting our savages from the richness that is plenty in their underground to avoid them get interested in it, and make you murderous and dream one day of overthrowing you.
Your knowledge of the gospel will allow you to find texts ordering and encouraging your followers to love poverty, like happier are the poor because they will inherit the heaven, and it's very difficult for the rich to enter the kingdom of God. You have to detach from them and make them disrespect everything which gives courage to affront us. I make reference to their mystic system and their war fetish, warfare protection, which they pretend not to want to abandon, and you must do everything in your power to make it disappear. Your action will be directed essentially to the younger ones, for they won't revolt when the recommendation of the priest is contradictory to their parents' teachings. The children have to learn to obey what the missionary recommends, who is the father of their soul.
Sing every day that it's impossible for the rich to enter heaven. Make them pay tax each week at Sunday Mass. Use the money supposed for the poor to build flourishing business centers. Institute a confessional system, which allows you to be good detectives, denouncing anyone that has a different consciousness contrary to that of the decision maker. Teach them to forget their heroes and to adore only ours. Never present a chair to any that comes to visit you. Don't give him more than one cigarette. Never invite him for dinner even if he gives you a chicken every time you arrive at his house. The above speech, which shows the real intention of the Christian missionary journey in Africa, was exposed to the world by Mr. Mukwani Bukoko, born in the Congo in 1915, and who in 1935, while working in the Congo, bought a second-hand Bible from a Belgian priest who forgot the speech in the Bible.
Okay, so let me go back to this. No, I can tell you this. There are a lot of people, if not pretty much, most people will come upon this. They will not like me for this. They will not like it because that's not what they have been cultured and taught and whipped to believe. They will think, I am the demon, I am the devil. But when Leopold was committing his crimes, they don't even want to remember that. They will tell you, oh, that's in the past. We now have Jesus. He's the one who will, protect our souls. What this king, this demon, Belgium Congo King Leopold said, he said, don't worry about teaching them about God. He said they already know that. They already know. Those what him call savages, the Africans who is living, they're living in their world, not troubling anybody, not going out to sea to conquer any other people and to destroy and to commit genocide against people all over the earth. They were not doing that. They were living their own life. But he, the savage, went and called them savages. And he tell them, don't worry about them and God. They know about God. What you have to do is that thing that we give you, that Bible that we gave to you, you have to go and force it upon them and let them forget about what they knew. Right? They knew it. They had their own priests that are the person who would lead them in a spiritual way. And they would know these people, and they would make sure that the people know how to take care of themselves, or how they take care of the people when they're sick, the right herbs, the right bushes, the right water, the right whatever, and they would heal them. Because this is, the way disease came about when the Europeans came through. If there was disease with those people, they would not be there. Everybody would have been dead at the rate of how people died off when they encountered Europeans. I'm not here to fight Europeans. I'm here to talk. I'm a what they call me amateur historian, or a person who's dealing with history. That's what it is. That's what took place. And so he instructed his men to say, don't worry to teach those savages. He said, teach them to love poverty. Tell them that the poor will inherit heaven. But he, the one who wanted all of the money, all of the gold, all of the diamonds, all of the rubber out of the thing, that's what the earth belongs to us. We are supposed to eat the fat of the earth. But they must wait until they are dead to go to heaven to get this benefit that we are getting here on earth. Tell them to give you money, a tax, and call it a tax. And call it even tithe and offering, where them call it easy. And tell them and tax them. They must bring it every Sunday when they come to Sunday service. And they must pay it. So we can take that money and start businesses. Businesses. You see the kind of mega churches that they have now? That's exactly the practice what these guys are doing. Take people's little money and build big businesses, mega churches. And so that is what Leopold told them. Take the money and start businesses. They are to do everything in their power to get them. He said, everything in your power. That means if you unalive them, if you maim them, and I'm telling you, I wish I could speak some of the things, because I have clips that I could play that they are saying the thing, and I decided against it, because when the algorithm sends up a flag to say, look here, this man is saying something that is, and it's usually to do with something that they say when you analyze it, if I mention it, I'm going to be pulled out. So my main reason for getting into this evening are these guys here, who said they're going into the streets, and they said they were staging a march ahead of the, I need to see the rest of that down here. They were staging the march ahead of the court ruling, and they want to make sure that the court doesn't rule in favor of Obeah. And Obeah is a spiritual expression. People use it just the same way you go into a church and you could, what they call fallout, you could be practicing praise and worship, and you could follow it because you get so spiritually involved that you could just pass out. And we see it over and over in the churches where people just pass out. Because when the spirit overtakes your body, this feeling of what they call rapture, your soul is in rapture, or you get raptured, and you go into this trance. And you can fall down, because I've seen it in churches. But he's saying, don't get caught up in this thing. Get them to submit to your way. They said that you are to teach them that this Jesus, which in the real said the word that, but it's Jesus I'm talking about. You must teach them that Jesus is the Father of their soul, not them. Them have nothing to do with their own soul. It's Jesus. Now listen, Christianity came about, about 2,000 years ago. The Africans have been practicing their things for millenniums. So they just come through, they've been there for thousands upon thousands of years. And they just come by and they said, no, we want their land. We want them to work the land. And this is what you tell them, that this person is the father of their soul. This person who they have taken into Brazil. There's a story about Brazil, that the Brazil has a lot of these what they call people who they call it voodoo in that, or the different names that they call, I don't have them in my head here right now, that the names of the people who practice these religions not religion, these spiritual practices that they do in Brazil. And they say the people in Brazil were unalive, taken out by the hundreds when that man named Bolsonaro was in power, the one who they just sent to prison, because he wanted them to stop believing in voodoo, or whatever the name that they give, because the Brazilians call it something else. The Haitians and the Benin, Togo, they call it voodoo. But and they've made us come to hate the name voodoo. And it's a situation, from my understanding, the situation in Brazil is similar to what goes on in Jamaica, where we have these Tapanaris people. And the Tapanaris people, they feel very uncomfortable when they see people practicing these things, and they get the government to go up against the people. So they were actually unaliving hundreds of people. Bolsonaro ordered some gangsters to go in the street and unalive hundreds of people to get them to stop believing in what they got from what was handed down to them centuries upon centuries, ancestors after ancestors. Let's see what somebody's trying to send me a message here. Give me one quick second. Let me just look at this message here. The spiritual African leaders in Brazil are called Voduns. That's one of the names they call them. They have different names that they call them, but one of them is Voduns. But the bottom line is that they don't like to see people And I'm not surprised that it started happening in Jamaica because they were expecting the master in Jamaica to win that election and take over. And so what they were coming to do is to do what they were doing in Brazil and to say, hey, Brazil, say you can't practice that anymore. This is a spiritual thing. It's like we would go out and we're going to take out what those people, the Pocomina people. Pocomina are, they call them spiritualists. So it's another flavor of the spiritual way of worshiping. And because the one thing for sure, the Africans didn't understand that there was a God, that there was a supreme being. But let me go to another person, a little clip of somebody who is explaining. I think they use an AI, and I have another one who is a natural person. So let's go to this one.
You know, African spirituality is deeply rooted in history, with rich traditions that span thousands of years. African spirituality dates back to prehistoric times, with ancient rock art and sacred sites reflecting early spiritual practices. Many African spiritual systems are based on the belief in a supreme creator, ancestral spirits, and the interconnectedness of all life. Healers and diviners, known as shamans or sangomas, play a crucial role in connecting the physical and spiritual worlds. Festivals and ceremonies celebrate life events, harvests, and rites of passage, fostering community and honoring the spirits. Art and symbols like masks and totems are integral to rituals, representing spiritual beliefs and cultural identity. From ancient traditions to modern practices, African spirituality remains a vital part of cultural heritage. Follow for more fascinating facts about African spirituality. Did you know African spirituality?
Okay, all right, that one ended. So, that one is giving you a sort of a historical view of how long these people have been worshiping this way. Literally thousands of years. I want to go back because I wasn't paying attention much myself just now. So let me drop this one back in, if I can get it to go.
Did you know African spirituality is deeply rooted in history, with rich traditions that span thousands of years? African spirituality dates back to prehistoric times, with ancient rock art and sacred sites reflecting early spiritual practices. Many African spiritual systems are based on the belief in a supreme creator, ancestral spirits, and the interconnectedness of all life. Healers and diviners, known as shamans or sangomas, play a crucial role in connecting the physical and spiritual worlds. Festivals and ceremonies celebrate life events, harvests, and rites of passage, fostering community and honoring the spirits. Art and symbols like masks and totems are integral to rituals, representing spiritual beliefs and cultural identity. From ancient traditions to modern practices, African spirituality remains a vital part of cultural heritage. Follow for more fascinating facts about African spirituality. Did you know African spirituality?
Okay, all right. So in Brazil, because of the same experience that they went through that they did in the Congo, where they got them, converted them to Christianity, you have a mix of this Christianity, and then you have a mix of a lot of the other ones are, sometimes they call it animist, of these different religions or spiritual forms of worship that they do. But the colonialists don't like it. They don't trust it. They know that these people have some powers, and they want it to stay as far away from them. So they get the government to go after them. Bolsonaro was the one who sent out criminals to go take them out. There's another guy I want to bring him in because he gives a nice perspective on what is the whole thing of the spirituality as it relates to Africans.
Why don't Africans use witchcraft to fix Africa's problems? That's the question some religious Africans ask without realizing the irony. You see, they dismiss their ancestral wisdom as witchcraft while following religions tied to the very systems that shaped Africa's struggles. But the real question is, why should those who still practice and preserve their ancestral knowledge fix a problem they didn't even create? Look, African spirituality isn't about performing miracles for those who abandoned it. It's about ancestral connection, energy, balance, oneness with nature. However, with the arrival of colonization, these concepts were demonized, misunderstood, misrepresented for centuries by the very people who wanted you religious. Yet, those who turned their backs on their ancestors now expect them to intervene just so that they can credit another deity. Now, ask your God to fix this pandemonium. Now, here is the interesting thing with most Africans who are religious. They do not fear their belief systems or holy books the same way they fear their ancestral systems. And you know why? Because deep down they know it works. So if you've ever crossed me and see me in a broad daylight walking with two healthy white goats anywhere on the African continent, if you know what's best for you, just come and apologize, and I promise I will forgive you. But I will not stop what I've already set in motion. So good luck.
Yeah, all right. So here we go. We're winding down. How am I doing for time? Let me see. Yeah, it might be not, but I have enough to keep me going for a while. So, all right. So he has presented his. The question he's asking is why would you be afraid of what you know and what your ancestors knew and handed down to you, and to take on somebody else's ways, and to take it to hate what you have? You're not the same as those persons. You're put in the earth for a particular reason and to represent in a particular way. So if you're going to walk away from your own strength, then you will remain weak. And because people don't believe in themselves anymore, that I wish I had pulled out some of these what I call it, out of the Bible, these chapters and verses. But I can quickly do this, on my phone here as I go and talk about some of this. In the Bible, there's a part in the Bible that says, "You are all gods." It's in the Bible, the one where that we say that is the word. It says, "You are all gods, but except for one thing, you will all die like men." That's the power given to you. That means it means that you have the power to do a lot more things. Even sometimes you hear when people who talk about how we use our brain, and to say that we are only using a small fraction of the capacity of this brain. And that is because that God inside of you, which was your spirit that's inside of you, you've never been to that place. You have done things, you have seen things, you have heard things around you, and you're taught to dismiss it. But there are things inside of you. You have a power inside of you that you can do great things with. And that is, let me see, I'm going to pull it up, and then when I come back, I tell you exactly where the Bible you find it, where it says, all of you're all gods. You have it inside of you, except for one thing: you will all die like men. Go to most pastors, and they refuse to even take up that or even discuss it with you, because they know if they were to teach you to think that way, you would stop listening to them. And some of this stuff they tell you. There's a clip I want to bring in after this guy.
Fragments from the periphery of the African spiritual and cultural system became Christianity. And when the Protestant broke away in the 1500s, the Ethiopian church was already 1,000+ years old. Had nothing to do with Protestant Europeanism. When the Catholic Church was founded in the 10th century, the Ethiopian church was already 500 years old. Has nothing to do with that. Though some people try to make it appear that we borrowed it from them in that form. No. If you look at how we look at the arrangements and our referencing the divine and our relationship to divinity and the elemental understanding of how to build human character so that it imitates divinity, you'll get a good sense of what African culture is really about. A lot of us practice the Yoruba culture, some of us the Igbo culture and others, but none of them have any think over the other. Each of them are groups of African under certain circumstances at a certain time in history trying to work this thing out. You know, the Yoruba have done an extraordinary job. The Igbo did an extraordinary job before they were attacked, defeated by the British. If you look at the Igbo, for instance, who didn't have the kind of the royal kingship that the Yoruba had, the Igbos their power resided in the sacred groves. When the whites figured that out, they just burnt the whole damn forest down in order to destroy the sacred groves of the Igbo people. And so that dismantled and disorganized the people because they had violated the sanctity of what these people believed and thought they knew. With the Yoruba, they tried to capture the king and capture the palace and stuff like that. But these people were not doing it for any religious reason. They were doing it for basic human greed, envy, and jealousy. When they came into Africa, if you read some of the documents they sent back to Europe, telling them what they had found, cities that was laid out in grids. They drew pictures of some of these cities. If I showed you slides, it'd blow your mind. They talked about the walls that people had built, the beautiful palaces. And then 2 centuries later, they're betraying us, the barbarians hanging from trees. You know? And it gets crazy. And because we don't know our history, we get to thinking that's the way the deal was. What the African says is that all things are expressions of aspects of the divine essence having your peculiar experience. So when we talk about voodoo, there was no religion called voodoo when we left Africa. That's a new thing. Let's get that straight. And so when we think of this voodoo, you got to be careful to learn how to rephrase and recast the system of worship that we engage in. And say, let's just take Haiti. Involves elements, loa. Those elements is a reference to the forces of nature and cosmology as interpreted and understood by our ancestors through experiences. So when we see the drawings that they call veves, that is some ancestor, some of our great minds' interpretation of a cosmic energy formation that responds to a certain vibration, be it language, music, or some other rhythm form. And so we paint what we perceive to be the representative instrument of that elemental energy vibration. You understand? We have something we call orishas. And they actually, people think that orishas are persons. But orishas are not persons. We use anthropomorphism to symbolize concepts, ideas, and principles. Orishas are concepts, ideas, and principles that represents forces and powers in both nature, in the human, and in the cosmology. To the degree to our ancestors understand how to define them and isolate them and to understand their function and how to have a relationship to them, that is the degree to which we create a theology around and about them. That's African sacred science. But most people would not even deal with our sacred science as sacred science. And we don't study enough to defend the integrity of our institutions. There's nothing that even borders on our ancestors' sacred science and an understanding of how this world works. No institution, none of them. They're all primitive compared to the depth at which we understood.
All right. And that's the man, Professor James Small. He's now, I think he lives between New York and Ghana. He was a professor at a university in New York City. Now, as I said, when we went off, I would want to go to where it says, all of you are gods. And the way sometimes you wonder, that somebody will tell you something and the Bible says something, but somebody can say, well, it never really literally meant that. As if, well, as I said, there was somebody named Jesus. It's obvious that somebody had walked earth named Jesus, but certainly not anybody looking like that. Right? You would probably more want to somebody, you probably would have seen somebody like this as Jesus. He would have been a brown man, a black man, but certainly not a Caucasian, because they didn't live in that part of the world at the time when Jesus was walking on the face of the earth. So the thing is, I went and I did the search, and let's quick search and about this thing about all of you are gods, and it said it appears in Psalm 82 verses 6. So you can write that down if you doubt that I'm saying this to be true or false or whatever. It says, and is quoted by Jesus in John 10:34 to defend himself against accusations of blasphemy. These people want to go on and to kind of qualify what Jesus said. He said the content is not that humans are literally divine. That is, yes, we are divine people. You have a spirit, you have a soul, and you can do, we see people do lots of things every day that transcends what the normal man who was not taking the time out to explore what he's capable of doing. He said, but that God appointed certain humans like earthly judges or rulers to act as his representatives. This is just man trying to put his own twist to the thing. So he's saying, well, where Jesus talk, him not really mean what him say. That's what these people are doing. In Psalm 82, God calls these leaders gods or sons of the Most High, but then reprimands them to their unrighteous judgment and warns that they will die like mortals, which is pretty much it. We all die. None of us here in the earth or in this world, from as far back as when we first came about, that we are going to be here forever in this one space. You transcend into another realm after a certain point of time. So we are, but you said you have to go through that. And you have people who have their own concept of how it happens, what happens after we leave, and people now believe, and come to accept our African ways that they thought they have this principle of that you come back, you reincarnate back into life. Some people say you will reincarnate back into life as a man because you were here as a human being then, and you will come back as a human being. But some people say you do it about 8 times. There are some places in Africa, they will say, so who's this one now who has come back? I don't know how many of you have been following the story of Ibrahim Traore. That there was a man just before Ibrahim Traore was born, just maybe a year or two. And the man he came to power just the same way how Ibrahim Traore came to power. He came through a coup d'etat. And his name was Thomas Sankara. Anybody wants to look him up can look him up. Thomas Sankara. Then Ibrahim Traore was born shortly after this man Sankara was assassinated by his own friend. And then Ibrahim Traore came back and he's doing like the exact same thing that Thomas Sankara did while he walked the earth. So you see where they say where the Africans, because of their things stretching back so far back in history, millions, hundreds of thousands of years prior to the Europeans coming into Africa, are coming with the concept of what this whole Christianity thing. Because the Christianity is, Jesus wasn't a Christian. Jesus was Jesus. Christianity are followers of Jesus. People follow people, because you could get somebody who get up one day, just the way Rastafari follow Selassie and believe in Selassie. So you get the Rasta movement born up out of that. So it's the same thing. And if you look in Europe, the amount of white people who are converting to Rastafari, we don't know when in another 1,000 years what it's going to look like. And they could take it over and start teaching just the way they teach about other characters. But the thing is how we black people, Africans, have been co-opted and made to think the way others want us to think. They have taken away our names. They even have us bleaching our skins. And one of the most valuable material element in the earth right now is this color of your skin, what they call melanin. They say they are actually reproducing melanin now in an artificial way, because melanin is so valuable to even the aerospace industry. So we see where did I do that thing? Oh my God, I don't know if I did it. We see where there's something I should have done. I don't know if I did it, but it looks like I did. We see where these people, are people are looking like they're, and I've identified. I've seen there's a young kid I saw recently. I got distracted a minute there. A young kid I saw recently where and several of them, I've seen several of these cases where young kids come and they just know these mathematical principles and very difficult principles that not any and everybody can do them. But they come in at 9, they're in the big universities and they're sitting there with the professors. And Jesus might have even been one of those people, because he came as a young boy and he was like showing at age 12, was showing this talent and this knowledge. And, that he would sit and reason with the high priests who were the learned ones of the period. So when we hear of a Sankara, and then we get a Ibrahim Traore, who behaves the same way, he's doing the same things, all those kinds of things were taken from us, which we should be understanding. And people go out of their ways to try to tell us, no, it's not that way, it doesn't go that way. Because you know why? They're going to say, you guys don't possess that special gift, the ability to be able to do these things and to realize these things. So it's a big struggle, a constant struggle. Now, when we are trying to get back into ourselves, to understanding ourselves, that some people say they want to practice Obeah. Now, one of the things they say with these spiritualist type of things, the people, especially with voodoo, people think people go with voodoo and to go hurt people. They said if you do voodoo to hurt anybody, it's not going to be anywhere effective as what they have when they do what they do. It was, in fact, I hope maybe it's have a longer cut that I want to play for a while. In fact, was in Toussaint Louverture, Dessalines, and a man them called Bookman Dotty. In Jamaica, I think they would have called him Dotty Bookman, but his name is Bookman Dotty. He was a Jamaican who went to Haiti to start the revolution, to show Toussaint Louverture and Dessalines and the others how to start the revolution, kick off the revolution. As them say, when Toussaint went there and they realized, the people were suffering Bookman Dotty look on them and said, chop off them BBC head. And they kicked it off, they set it off, and they chased out the French out of Haiti. Now, in those days, the French was a very powerful army. The Haitians didn't even have the wherewithal yet to challenge the powers, the French powers that are the might of the French. But this thing that they practice, this voodoo, what we call voodoo, as the Professor Small said, there was not named voodoo, but whatever the name, but this is what the Western world has given to us to say that's what they call it, voodoo, make it sound ugly. And he said, the reason, and I'm going to play it and try and do as much of it for the rest of the evening, the reason why that thing, they were able to overpower the French, the most powerful army in the world, it was because of the use of the practice of this thing we call voodoo. Because they have within them this power that was given to all of us. All of us got it. And if we learn how to depend on ourselves and go into ourselves and pull it out, we can accomplish way more than we can ever imagine. So that is kind of the power of these things. This is what they're trying to do. They drove it out of us for a long time. But as we recycle, as I said about this recycling through this reincarnation process, those ancestors are coming back because we are our ancestors. And the gene that we have inside of us, it's the gene of the ancestors. So we continue to be them and represent them here. So, you know what, let me go to this other, it's a much longer thing, so if anybody wants to check out, but it's very interesting. Let me go back to Professor Small.
Healthy discussion.
Let me just say this, please. If you don't mind and you'd like to share this with somebody, please go ahead, share, like, make a comment, and subscribe to this channel. And show me the sign that you appreciate this type of programming, because I'll be getting into more of this. I just want to, again, just show you these guys. Those guys are, they call themselves pastors, and they want to dictate to the rest of us to say, we must submit to what they believe in and the way they want to live and what they want to believe in. We must submit, and we shouldn't believe and believe in anything else, but except for what they want to give to us. These are the ones who will make sure they collect the offerings, as the man said, collect the taxes. Because in the early days, in the African ways, they never had any buildings in some religions in Africa. They have a version of it in Jamaica. They don't worship inside of buildings. They worship under trees. And if you worship under a tree, you don't need to be taking anybody's money. But let's go back to Professor Small.
About voodoo and about Haiti, but more about voodoo than Haiti. And when we say voodoo in Haiti, that simply means traditional African spiritual system, or an indigenous African spiritual system. The indigenous African spiritual system, which is common to all of the continent, is called voodoo in Haiti as the manifestation. In other parts of Africa, it's called other things, but what we're talking about is the traditional or indigenous African spiritual system that forms the African world view. And that is what's under attack. One of the last conversations I had with Dr. Asa Hilliard, he told me to teach our people that we're in a cultural war, and that if we don't win the culture war, we will not win the political and economic war, no matter how many battles we win on the political and economic front. If you do not win the culture war, you will lose the whole battle. The cultural battle, you will lose the whole war. And so what we see in Haiti over the last, really 300 years, is an attack on the African psyche, an attack on the African worldview, an attack on the African cosmogony by attacking the African spiritual system, which is at the center of African culture. And the word voodoo comes from the Fon language. Many of the people in Haiti come from the Fon nation. These are the people primarily of the area we now call Benin. In Benin, one of the word for God its neighboring country, Togo, where the Ewe people, or cousin people to the Fan people live, their word for God, one of their word for gods, is voodoo. Matter of fact, in Togo, when you want to say the nature of God in man, you say voodoo daha, meaning the God in me. You know, if you want to call on God Almighty, the Fan people, as well as the Haitian people, use the word Lisa. In Togo, the neighboring country, they use the word Sobe Lisa, which means God is every and all things at once. That God exists alone, and everything else that exists is an expression of an aspect of the divine essence. And that is the nature of voodoo. What voodoo says is that everything that exists is an aspect of God, and thus the essence of God is in all things: plants, animals, earth, water, humans. And because the divine essence is in all things, then we should treat all things as though they are an expression or representative of the divine essence. And so in the structure of voodoo, you know, voodoo call them Loas. I'm an Orisha priest, a priest of Obeah, from the Yoruba perspective, which is the same system as the Haiti system. And the Yorubas call them Orisha. The Haitians call them Loas. But what we're talking about is the forces of nature that we know about and that we recognize. Africans and the voodoo system and the Orisha system have been able to discern in nature over 240 primary forces and another 500 to probably 1,000 sub-forces that are elements of one of these 240 primary forces. And what I'm talking about when I say forces, we are talking about, if you're talking about a plant, and pick a specific plant, we know that in any specific plant, there is pharmaceutical elements that would allow you to use that plant to help assist in the healing of the human body or the replenishing of the human body. So that element of that plant that will assist in the healing or the replenishing of the human body is called a force, or an orisha, or power of God in this living thing. And the same thing with animals. In all animals, the animal contains the essence of the divine. And so when you do a sacrifice and you kill an animal, the vital energy that was that animal is released. And the African tradition says that you can capture that vital energy and use it for good. Everybody talks about voodoo as being something that could be used for bad. Well, if that's the case, why haven't we defeated the Europeans with it? If we've got this power to do harm and destructive things, why haven't we used this power to destroy the imperialists, to destroy the colonialists, to destroy the oppressors, to destroy those who practice genocide against us? That's not what voodoo is about. Voodoo is about understanding nature, your relationship to nature, nature's relationship to you, and to be able to discern your interdependence on nature and nature interdependence on you, the human family. And that system of organizing, which goes back as far as the first African, it actually goes back to God, the divine itself. Because in the beginning, you know, in our system, ancestry plays a great role. And in Haiti, if you go to any home, even those who say they're Catholic, almost every home in Haiti, whether they proclaim Christianity or not, have shrines to their ancestors. And ancestors is not a big deal. When you tell someone in modern society that you are going to take their DNA, what you're telling them is that I'm going to examine who your ancestors are. Your DNA is your traces of your ancestors. So when someone takes your DNA, they're looking to see what are the trace elements of your ancestors that still remain in your genes, and what ancestors still remain in your genes. And so the ancestors are not dead and gone. The ancestors are actually embedded in us, in our DNA, embedded in every cell and every gene in our body. You know, there's an African way of saying it, that we are the best collections of our ancestral genes, of the most powerful genes of our ancestors. Thus, we are the latest model and the highest tech version of those ancestors. And when we pass these genes on to our children, we not only pass ourselves on, we pass all the ancestors that came before us in that line on. So the ancestors isn't something in the past. The ancestors is embedded in the DNA of your body, the genes, the molecules, the electrons and the protons that are in you are the experiences and the result of those experiences that all your ancestors have had since the divine God itself. Because God is the first ancestor. Out of God came the essence and element that made the first human. And in us are the elements that came from the divine into the first human that has been passed down to us. That is the essence of voodoo. It is the sacred science of African indigenous spiritual system.
Let me stop there for a second so I don't have you and think I've disappeared. Well, it's pretty much, building on top of what I've just kind of mentioned, that who we are, and we are the continuation of our ancestors. And when we have children, we are passing the baton on to them to continue the race. So while we were crushed like into the dust, crushed into nothingness, we were looked at and by all other people as nothing. But today, a revolution is taking place in Africa. It's unbelievable what is going on. You now have people who are literally tearing down the gates to get people who live in the West, in this United States of America, in Europe, in England, all over them places. They are tearing down the place to get into Africa now, because Africa, it's doing all of whatever we need to be doing, or we should have been doing. It's like the giant has become awake. You hear them use a term in America when they're trying to ridicule black people and say, we woke. They woke. Or these are the woke people. Yeah, we woke. Because Africa is not what it used to be 5-10 years ago. The Africa we are seeing now, they are just, these people it's unbelievable what they're doing. All the countries are coming together, and this is no joke. The last mile that is left for us right now as a people is what Bob Marley called for. Africa unite. Unite for the benefit of your children. Unite because it's later than you think. Bob Marley. That's why the Africans on the continent now, there's nothing to them like a Jamaican. They're seeing themselves, they finally have come awake, and they're realizing what they need to do. And we have to plug ourselves, we in the West have to plug ourselves into whatever is happening there, because this is amazing. This is something I've been dreaming about from a youth in my teens, and learned that I belong to Africa. And I was taught by the Rasta man. That's why I have so much respect for Rasta people. I'm not talking about dreadlock nonsense. The man, as the youth, I think is one of the Morgan's heritage youth, the one who passed on. Him say, you don't have to be dread to be Rasta. It's not a dreadlock thing. It's a conception of the heart. It's what's inside of you. All right, so let me go a little more on this one.
And that is under attack by the Christian world, primarily, to some degree by the Muslim world, but particularly by the Christian world, because if the African spiritual system and the African indigenous theology begins to govern African social construction, then you will not be able to oppress African peoples. And so what we are seeing is an attack on the culture of African people, because it is understood by our enemies that by attacking our culture, we will attack the spiritual center, and we will attack those people's ability to protect themselves against genocide. I think it is Sister Marimba Ani that says culture protects the people against genocide. And the way culture protects you against genocide, culture is the educational system of a people that instructs and informs the people of the best of the wisdom of their ancestors that can be used to construct the family, to construct the extended family, to construct the neighborhood, to construct the community, and to construct the nation based on principles, concepts, and ideas that have been proven to be sustainable, and that is capable of allowing a society to structure itself around truth, justice, righteousness, harmony, balance, and reciprocity, as our ancestors state in the term we call ma'at. And so when you're talking about voodoo, you're talking about the way of God as understood by the Africans and have passed down through the centuries. The rituals are nothing but ways of teaching that way of life. Rituals and ceremonies are the university for the value system of a people. You understand? And a people must be able to teach the concepts, ideas, and principles and embed them in the very psyche of the society. And the way that is taught is through ceremonies, through rituals, through celebrations, through festivals. And those festivals, rituals, and ceremonies is coordinated based on the cycles of nature. You understand? And so when we talk about voodoo, they try to reduce voodoo to European witchcraft. Voodoo is not European witchcraft. Voodoo is the oldest sacred science on the planet. Out of voodoo came Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. They all are elements from fragments from the periphery of the voodoo system, or the African indigenous spiritual system. So when I describe the three major religions of the West, we're talking about innovations on aspects of fragments from the periphery of African sacred science. And yet they've organized themselves, those three religions, over the last 2,000 to 3,000 years, to plunder the earth in the name of their notion of the divine, to murder and commit genocide against hundreds of millions of people, to usurp and steal the resources and raw materials of the land these people live in. And part of their genocidal process is to demonize the people that they're practicing genocide against, so they can rationalize their genocide that's carried out for the purpose of stealing the raw material and resources of those African peoples. And so what have sustained us and what have sustained Haiti is the remnants and elements of voodoo that remain in our daily culture and in our habits. It is embedded in the very language of the Haitian people. The Haitian people do not speak French. You know, they speak an African language. They may call it Creole or Patois, but you're talking about speaking an African language using a French vocabulary. But the grammar construction of the Haitian language is fundamentally African. And many of the words are African. They have a small amount of Native American vocabulary, but the dominant vocabulary are African, using some French vocabulary, but the grammar structure is solely African. And your grammar structure is how messages are translated through sound and vibration, which we call language, into the human mind. And the very vibration of a sound stimulates aspects of the brain as well as other cells in the human body and carry messages beyond just the mundane definition of the word. You understand? Because we're talking about rhythm. We're talking about vibrations, you know? And so we need to back up and study our ancestors and study our history. There has been no friendly relationship of Christianity to Haiti. Christianity came into Haiti as a murderer. It has sustained its relationship in Haiti as a murderer, an oppressor, and a usurper of the resources of Haiti. Haiti's got gold. Haiti's got diamonds. Why isn't the gold and diamonds of Haiti being used to help the Haitian people? Why is it ending up in Canada, France, and North America? Haiti's got good land, and Haiti's land, the American agricultural conglomerates are using the Haitian farmland to feed America, but not the people of Haiti. As a sweatshop for cheap American textile products and other products without the Haitian people profiting from it. Haiti is located in a place where tourism could be turned into a mega industry if someone wanted to develop the beaches and the shores of Haiti, which they have a lot of, so that Haiti can become as big a tourist center as Brazil or as Dominican Republic or Puerto Rico. But it has not been in the interest of the European American, Canadian, and the French, because they have been acting towards Haiti with vengeance because of the Haitian Revolution, led by not just Toussaint Louverture. Toussaint was one of the leaders. Boukman was another leader. Dessalines was a leader. Christophe was a leader. And Defilé, the priestess, who was probably the most significant of the leaders. She was the voodoo priestess that was the very soul of the Haitian Revolution, that gave the impetus and the strength to Dessalines and Toussaint and the others. The man who initiated the revolution was Boukman Dutty, and he initiated that revolution with the prayer that we will get rid of the gods of the white man, and that we will call upon the gods of our fathers. We will call upon Ogun. We will call upon Oya. We will call upon Yemoya. We will call upon Olokun. We will call upon Oshun. We will call upon Oshosi. We will call upon Shango. Those are the forces in nature that also exist in the body man that you can discern the principles from and use to organize yourself as both a military structure and a civil social structure. And they use that wisdom that they gain from an understanding of these forces and power elements, which others call angels or prophets, and they use those principles to organize themselves to defeat the mightiest army on earth at that time, an army that was defeating all armies in Europe when it came up against not just the black people of Haiti, when it came up against the black people of Haiti being organized around the principles of Voodoo. That mighty army was crushed to the earth.
What mighty army?
The mighty army of French under the leadership of Napoleon Bonaparte. That was the mightiest army on earth at the time. It had crushed Europe. But when it ran into Voodoo, it lost. It lost. What happened was the betrayal of the revolution. You know, after the revolution, after the first phase of the revolution, in the first phase of the Haitian Revolution, where Toussaint was the leader, there were many white Frenchmen and other white settlers in Haiti who fought on the sides of the blacks. What the white slave owners and landowners wanted
Don't go anywhere.
to do was to be free from France, to run their plantations and handle their slaves at will. But once they had to free the slaves to help fight that, the enslaved Africans said, we're not going back into the plantation. But even Toussaint agreed after that first phase of the revolution that the the Africans should go back to the plantation. And there was a resistance to that. And when Toussaint was captured by the French, when he went on the French boat to sign the peace treaty and transported to Europe and put in a prison in Bulgaria, where he ended up dying from starvation, Dessalines, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, who do not get the credit he deserved. Toussaint was an African mulatto. Jean-Jacques Dessalines was a thoroughbred African. Toussaint, who grew up in the urban setting as a house Negro, was a very strong soldier and great leader. But Dessalines was a field Negro, as Malcolm would put the analogy. And Dessalines then took over the revolution with his sidekick Christophe. And they defeated the mightiest of the French army. That's when the force of France was sent against them. And they crushed them to the earth with voodoo as the primary organizing instrument and the primary spiritual motivation.
Stop there. Now, you see what I'm saying? Can you imagine now? They don't even teach us that about what happened with that Haitian Revolution. Well, Professor James Small has brought into focus the thing of this voodoo. And to say that this is what the Africans had and they used it. You know, if there's a part in the Bible when it talks, when God sent, as the story goes, God sent Moses to go talk to Pharaoh and said, "Let my people go." And Moses looked at him and said, "But I'm going up against the mightiest of them, the Pharaoh. I have nothing to fight with." And God said, "What do you have in your hand?" "My staff." So you go ahead and go talk to Pharaoh. I mean, there's a whole other story behind that I could go into, but I'm not going to, because there's a bit more of this to go, and I'd like to go through it. But to say that what we have inside of us is greater than what lies behind us. Let's say what lies before us and what lies behind us are minute matters compared to what lies within us. So we have that power inside of us, and it is there right in the Bible that we read. But what they did to come back to say, you're useless, you have no value, you have nothing. And they say, oh, the Bible said, God said you are all gods. But he was just saying that. It don't mean anything. You're not God, because did you hear what Professor Small said? They are afraid of you. They are afraid of you and your Obeah. They are afraid of who you really are. Because yesterday I had a chat with Dr. Phillips. Maybe you wouldn't want to even be put in this frame. Once upon a time, Dr. Phillips was a Rasta man. And maybe that Rasta man, Peter Phillips, probably would understand. I would appreciate this. But the man, Peter Phillips, who is up there as a man who is an authority in economics and who has helped to set us straight, maybe he wouldn't want to even be identified with this. But as I observe, I see within him the power that gave him that knowledge, gave him that ability to look at that monster that Jamaica was facing, the monster that was ready to throw us over the cliff. And Peter, just like the mighty one in the story of Peter in the Bible, he stood up, he went to face those giants, and even though they were not showing him any respect, he was able to present a document that today it is being studied in Harvard and Yale and Princeton and Oxford and wherever. They're studying it because what he did, I played a clip yesterday which showed you when he went to Lima, Peru. And when he went there, it's as if some great hero, some great warrior, some great somebody came through. They were just fawning over him. He's a very modest man, as you can see. When I brought it up last night, I said, some people were looking and to say who is responsible and who should get credit. Yeah, forget about that. I don't care about that. As long as the ship is steadied, as long as the ship is sailing, as long as we are going forward, that's what I care about. So what is inside of Peter Phillips, what was inside and still is inside him, is what took him to this place, that he was able to perform that job, that duty, that work, as Rastaman used to love to say, that works, that he performed. And today, we see Nigel Clark come get big promotion off it as if it is him who did it. It wasn't him. It was Dr. Peter Phillips. And he's such a modest person, he wouldn't even want, I don't think he'd care to hear me talk about him in this. But that's what it is. We have thrown away the best part of us. And we refuse to take it because until a white man tell us, a European, a massa, a colonialist tell us that we have these powers within us, we are not going to believe it. So let me go back some more. That's a bit more to go.
But after Dessalines had won the battle, and Dessalines created his flag for Haiti, which is not the flag that's being used in Haiti today, Dessalines was assassinated by the mulatto general who made up the Christian elite. Even today, that mulatto Christian elite is more responsible for what has happened in Haiti than even the European oppressors from the outside. And we keep letting them get away. So after assassinating Dessalines, they chopped his body up into 13 pieces and buried them in different places. But his wife, Defile, she got the women together and they found all the pieces and they sewed Dessalines' body back together and buried it appropriately. But those same mulatto generals, led by the bishop of the Catholic Church, went and dug the body up again and cut Dessalines' head off and took it. And they tell us about voodoo, about witchcraft. You know? And so the Haitian Revolution was sabotaged from the beginning by those who believed in the European religious way of life and partnered with those Europeans against the Africans who believed in the African spiritual indigenous way of life, which we now call voodoo, that had won the revolution to free them. But even after defeating the French, that army had to go on and defeat the British, and then defeat the Spanish, who came in to help the French. No army in the history of the world under any similar conditions have had the success that Haiti had against the greatest powers in the world, Spain, Britain, and France, and came out victorious because they were organized around the elements of voodoo daha, the nature of God within man, and used that organizational cycle and system to structure their society, from their military society right down to their agricultural society. And so from day one, led by the Catholic Church and their Protestant children, they have had Haiti under attack, trying to destroy the essence of the African indigenous spiritual system, because if the rest of the African world truly understand what happened in Haiti and begin to adopt and return to the spiritual essence of their ancestors and looking towards our indigenous culture to organize ourselves, we'll all be able to free ourselves of European spiritual domination, cultural domination, and psychological domination. And once you can do that, it becomes easy to free yourself of their economic domination and their political domination. So when we think of voodoo, voodoo is a way of life. It is a way of life that is wrapped in a culture. It is a way of life with a spiritual core that goes back to the divine itself at the very beginning of human time. It is a way of life that everybody else have a fragment of and use to organize their theologies around the world, while at the same time denying the parent people that gave them the very foundation for their theology. I'm talking about everything from Buddhism to Islam, from Christianity to Judaism. All of them are nothing more than representatives of fragments from the periphery, innovations on fragments from the periphery of the African spiritual system, which we call voodoo. And anybody that think they want to have a problem with that or challenge me with that, I will debate anybody. I will sit with anybody. I will whatever with anybody to let them know and understand that there is no way you can talk about a voodoo without talking about the way of life of man in its purest form. That is the first manifestation of man's interpretation on earth to represent the divine blueprint of the Creator itself. By recognizing the essence of the Creator in all things and respecting that divine essence that manifests in all things.
Is there a similarity, is there an aspect of voodoo God, which also was a part of the Egyptian spirit?
The Egyptian system can be called the voodoo system. It's the same system. The Haitians call the elements of the divine that they recognize loas. The Egyptians call those elements of the divine netches. They're talking about the same thing. The netches or the netcheru of Egypt is the same loas of Haiti and the same orisha of Nigeria. They're all talking about the manifestation of aspect of the divine power and essence in all other living things. And when you think of voodoo, voodoo is not a religion. It is not a theocracy. It is a total way of life that involves the medicine, that involves the spiritual, that involves the pharmacology, that involves the psychology, that involves the sociology. All of these things are interrelated into one system that we call voodoo. And it has many different elements and many different levels of priesthood that do the many different functions. A priest is nothing more than a scientist who's a practitioner and who's a specialist in one area or another. Today in the West, what they're calling scientists is what we once called priests back in the early days. Okay. And so you may have, there's an element of voodoo that deals with surgery. There's an element that deals with pharmacology. There's an element that deals with psychology. I'll just give you a sense of understanding. There's three major orishas that everybody in the West know about. They know about Shango, they know about Obeah, they know about Ogun. And so they'll say, oh, Ogun is the god of war, the god of iron. And Obeah is the goddess of wind. And Shango is the god of lightning and thunder. But those are anthropomorphic symbols with metaphoric labels. If you look at the essence of what they were to symbolize in the human spirit and in nature itself, Shango in the human spirit symbolizes the courage within a human being that recognizes the need for higher spiritual growth. And once that is realized, that you have the courage, which they looked at a king as being the most courageous in society. So the courage to change yourself spiritually requires great courage. And so Shango is to symbolize the courage within any human being to change themselves to a higher spiritual self. But to do that, once you realize the need for change, you got to do something. You've got to marry change in process. Obeah, the female symbol, which represents the wind, which is a symbol of metaphoric change, then marries Shango. So now the need for change has married the process of change. But the need for change now married the process of change. The process, the cycle is not complete. So now change, the woman, must take a second husband, which the West call polyandry. But there wasn't no woman actually doing this. This is a metaphor. The second husband becomes Ogun. Ogun, the god of iron, the god of war, represents transformation. Well, transformation follows change. You understand? So when you're talking about the story of Shango and the story of Obeah and Ogun, you're talking about the courage to realize the need for change. You're talking about change in the transformation that comes as a...
All right. I'm I'm going to leave it like that for the evening because I think the gentleman who was running the camera was having some challenges there, and I think it's going to go on for a little bit not so good. So I think we pretty much get we have a good idea of where we are, who we are, where we can go if we would stop being afraid of ourselves, stop just believing what Massa gave to us, stop even believing in Massa, because we see this Massa down in Jamaica who has passed himself. I think Peter wants to be a part of this. All right, let me open the phone. Give me a quick second. And if there's anybody else who wants to make a comment, people seem to be a little bit afraid of this topic. I don't blame you, because this is something that is going against the norm, the grain, and it's a bit scary. But once we get used to who we are, and I pray that many, many more people will come to the realization of who they are, we will not find life so challenging. Some of these people, I think, who are going to the extreme of destroying themselves because they can't manage, they can't function. If they would get an understanding of who they are, they could easily overcome. I don't want to hang you out too long. I usually get caught up and I can break here. So, Peter, what's up? What you picking up anything from what has been said?
Mr. Perkins, once again, I want to thank you for illuminating, elucidating, and frankly educating the Jamaican people and the people of the world on this topic. And you're quite correct when you say this. This is not a topic that people without courage can enter into. Because what you're doing right now, and the people who are listening, even the people who are listening, Mr. Perkins, is showing courage.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you know,
I wish I would show a little bit more courage. One gentleman did say something early, but most people they don't want the pastor seeing that. they don't want the pastor seeing them involved in something like this. So I understand people are scared because they've been taught to believe in one thing and say if you say anything, God going to punish you and Him going to diss you, and I don't know what kind of megalomaniac God that is. But God, sorry.
I want to share something personal with the Jamaican people.
It's a worldwide thing. This not just Jamaica, all over the world.
Well, I mean, that's why the people of the world. Something personal about Peter from Queens. And one of the things, is that people don't know that Peter from Queens is going to be a Catholic priest. I was going to be a Catholic priest when I went into my first year of college, and the priest, to his credit, come and say, listen, Peter, check me back when you're a sophomore, right? When you're a sophomore, you come back to me. That's 2 years' time. You say, come back to me in 2 years. And if you feel the same way, then we're going to put you on the journey to be a Catholic priest. And Mr. Perkins, I tell you something. 2 years finally come up, and I go back to the priest, and the priest said, why, Peter, you really and truly look like you really want it. So I'm going to start to put in the process to make you become one. But that particular year, Mr. Perkins, I take something called world history. When I walked into that class, the first thing the professor said to me, he said, listen, if any of you here are religious, don't take this class. That's what the professor said. If any of you here are religious, don't take this class. And the reason why I'm saying it is because you're going to learn things in this class that's going to blow your mind and challenge your faith. That's why I understand why a lot of these Christians don't want to send their children into these quote-unquote secular schools because, they don't want their faith to be challenged. But if you read your Bible, Mr. Perkins, and I trust me, since I was going to be a priest, you read the Bible, you understand that the black Jesus, and Jesus was black people. I learned that in school. The black Jesus was challenged by Lucifer, because the only way you can have faith is unless somebody challenges you. The only way you can have faith is unless faith is challenged. And Mr. Perkins, I really and truly appreciate what you're doing tonight, because trust me, when I learned what I learned in that class, I just walked away from this whole Catholic priest business. I said, man, I am not going to get into this situation. This is all propaganda. And those 4 guys they were talking about that we must challenge Obeah. That's propaganda that they're doing. You do a right and courageous thing to come and say to the Jamaican people that they want to force something that is not part of our system onto us. That's not part of our world onto us. I'm glad they're doing it, Mr. Perkins. I'm very happy.
I tell you, I don't condemn anybody who has not, I don't want to say bought in or to even like what I'm saying, because it is what you were taught for all of your lives. And as I said early in the program, to get some people to change, you would have to take them through the same process they took us through to bring us to this place where we are now. To take you back to yourself, it would take literally a tyrant for some people to go back. That's why even that wicked man said to his people, don't worry so much about the older ones. Get the children. They like to go against their parents. So you tell them, and they see it as something to challenge their parents over. They see it as a something that they have on them that they can say to them, hell no, I'm not following you anymore. And that's what they do. Even any system where it's kind of revolution that takes place. The leader, if he's a good revolutionary leader, he tends to look out for the children. He doesn't get himself caught up with and you look at all of them. Look at Cuba, look at North Korea, even though we like cringe to hear these names being called, even with America in its time when they had a revolution, they would more look out for the younger people because they are the ones who will fall in line, and you can teach them, you can bend them, you can, shape them in the way you want. So to get older people who are set in their ways with Christianity, you're not going to get it. But then as you look at the church today, where it is just fading back and back, you don't see the kind of crowds in churches like you used to see back in the days when I was a kid going to church. You don't see that kind of church anymore. You see old men who are the pastors who are hanging on for dear life, refusing to hand it off to younger people who might be able to impart knowledge of truth to people, but they don't allow it. They want these older people who are set in their ways to continue with things, that they believe that is the way, and you're not going to be able to change them. Continue.
Mr. Perkins, I want to come on also commend you for bringing up the story about Bolsonaro. People don't realize, that in Brazil, Brazil is a combination of Catholicism, Protestants, and the Voduns, the ancient religion of the majority black population. Again, people don't realize that Brazil is a majority black population country. And what the evangelicals did, and a very devious modern scandal, is that they went down to Brazil, and they converted the young leaders in the favelas. Those are their version of ghetto. Or more of what we call a garrison community.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a Jamaican call it. Garrison community like a Tivoli or a Trenton or whatever.
Yeah.
And they come and got the garrison leaders, the influencers of that community. They converted them to be an evangelical, and then they use these guys. You know the Bible says, thou shalt not kill, and all that stuff. And the evangelical movement have this great quote unquote reference for the Bible. They use these evangelicals to go out and threaten, and somebody even make analyze some of these Voodoo people, which are mostly women.
Mm-hmm.
Surprisingly, some people are not to understand. And they made them and say, listen, you don't practice that here, or we're going to make you analyze. And some were made analyze, did not bow down for this new evangelical conversion.
But this is the kind of go on, finish.
And this is not something, Mr. Perkins, that just happened 400 or 500 years ago. This is modern times, over the last 10, 15 years.
Bolsonaro left office right as Trump was coming back. So it's just
yes, Mr. Perkins.
yeah, there's less than
and that's how Bolsonaro was able to come and take power in Brazil, because before that, Mr. Perkins, a man like Bolsonaro, a white man who come and call it black people in Brazil as our master, whole niggas. And we know what that means, but we can't say it over there. We can't say that over there because you get banned or right, but they call them whole niggas, Mr. Perkins, Bolsonaro. And you have the black people coming in and nodding them head and saying, yes, Bolsonaro was saying, make the whole niggas them unalive. And you had black people coming and saying,
always, because it's a belief system, and that is where I am. That's where it went tonight. It's the belief system. You don't break that so easily. And especially one as powerful and strong as Christianity. You don't break that. You can't break that easily. You have to come in, somebody has to come in and become a monster to kind of change that and then move out the old that. I don't even like to think about it because it's awful, this old, but that's how it works. And I'm not advocating for that either. I'm just saying how people bring change. That's, that's.
Yeah. People bring change by telling the truth. You hear me call them on the show all the time and talk about in praise of the black Jesus. If people listen to the whole shows, I mean, you hear me say the same thing over and over again, and people might say, why is Peter from Peace talking about the black Jesus? Because let me tell the people of the world this. If you go down to the Vatican, right? In the back, where they don't want to show the people, the public, most all the saints them and the pictures of Jesus is black.
No, but when a bigger one, well, that is true. But the big one for me I want to say for the century, is when Putin took over and Putin broke open what they call the vaults of Russia. And they brought out, because anything you find in Russia, you would find it in the Vatican. Because the both of them coming out of the same era. And all of these characters, these Bible characters, Jesus, Paul, Peter, all of them, they were all black. And I think why Putin did that, he wanted to get back at the West because he realized that this is what they were using to hold down black people. And he has given black people a chance to see themselves in a different light. We see, and that is why I think that is what gave Traoré that energy, that force, that power to stand up and challenge France, one of the most powerful armies in the world. He did. Do you know that when Traoré took over Burkina Faso, do you know that they never had weapons to fight? You would have men who would go on the front line with no guns, no weapons to fight with. But they went out there in such a way, in such a force, the spirit force that took hold and gave them this courage to stand out there. And I want to go on to a Bible story that there was this army. They used to call them the Israel, I don't want to even call it Israel, but the Israelites, they went out into battle one day. And when they went into battle and they would send, the leader would send out and say, go spy out and see what is going on out here. And he came back to which one of them Christian people was listening would tell me. My brother would be good at this thing. And he said, he came back to the leader, it must have been Joshua, I think. And he came back and he said, I might even be wrong with even that, but he came back and he said to him, hey, these guys are some giants out there. And boy, we should be afraid, we better be running away. And I think Joshua must have went into prayers and got doing thing. And that was before Jesus. So he would be praying in that deeper spiritual space inside him. So then he went back again, he sent another man. And I wish I could relate it with the names and everything, but he sent another man, and the man went and he came back and said, yeah, they're big, some giants, this is true, but we can defeat them. We know how to defeat them. And it was just a matter of clanging some cymbals, the cymbals, they call that thing, a clang, make sound in music. And all of them, they clanged whatever they could get. And these guys they heard a mighty army, and they ran away. And they were way better, big army. So it's the same kind of thing that happened with this Burkina Faso place. They never even had weapons. You know the first time they got some weapons? When Traore went to Russia and made a deal with Putin, and Putin started delivering the weapon for them to fight with. He said recently, like last week, he said, even now, we're still getting these things. We're still getting things because the amount of things that Putin committed to. What these people like France and the other so-called superpowers of the world, what they were doing, they were not giving the Burkina Faso people anything to fight with because they want to keep them in this weakened state. But that man Traore is, to me, displaying this very essence of what I'm talking about here this evening. To say we have a spirit inside of us, a God spirit, that the biggest of obstacle can be overcome if we apply that and bring it out and put it into play. Hey.
But Mr. Perkins, the Jamaican people, I just want to go back to Jamaica just a little bit right here. The Jamaican people, Mr. Perkins, displayed that God spirit in us for 10 straight years in Mr. Perkins.
Exactly. Thank you for that. It's exactly what it was.
The Jamaican people have buckled down
and if you ask, and if to know, you know what's the weirdest thing? If you ask some of them about it, they don't even remember, you know, because they lived through it and they come through it. Some of them will say, yes, I remember, but most of them don't even remember because, you know, pain, they say, is something is to be forgotten. No matter how you feel pain in a given time, a given moment of time, after a while, when whatever was causing that pain heals, you forget the pain or painful it was. So they won't even remember in a big way. But if you ask them, and they
remember, Mr. Perkins, because the Jamaican people suffer for 10 straight years.
Yeah, I know that. People, the cost of living went up. They remember the dollar was maybe about 1 million, if it's 125 or whatever it was, or 135, whatever. But it's no 160 because it just kept rising. It had to rise, that to devalue, that to do a whole lot of things. You know, the IMF style solution to things is to devalue your money and things become more painful. True. So, but in the way how they overcame it, the Jamaicans overcame it to this day, the rest of the world is in amazement and is in awe of the Jamaican people.
And that is an example of the God spirit in all of us.
In all of us.
In all of us. That is why what is going on, Mr. Perkins, when I'm talking about them going after the Pocomania, the Obeah people,
if I were them, I would say to them, if I were them, they better leave those people alone. That's how I would say, leave them alone, because that what they have inside of them is way more powerful than what they may have. They may have their courts and they may try, and I would say to the Chief Justice, whoever him, his Sykes or whoever, leave those people, give them their power, give them their rights, because it is not true that it is used to hurt anybody more than to say know themselves and find themselves.
Mr. Perkins, if this shoe was on the other foot, how would Jamaicans react? This is what we have to ask the question. How would Jamaicans react if you are a Christian and the Obeah people and say, you can't participate?
Yeah, well, it would be like the shoes going on the other foot. But don't worry. I brought my thing forward and I give people a chance to hear and to look into it and go do their own research. Peter, you know me. I want to thank you because I have a long day tomorrow and I want to lock this up. That's why I started a little earlier today. I want to appreciate and say thanks to everybody who came on. Quite a few people stayed out. Hope you'd even hit that subscribe button on your way out. So when I bring more things, you will be notified. And make a comment. You know, I look forward to seeing you again soon, you know, maybe even as soon as tomorrow if I can put something together. All right, thank you all for joining. Thank you, Peter, for contributing. Yeah, go ahead and make your last one.
Mr. I just have one final thing to say, and I know it's way off the topic of what you're saying, but listen, to the government of Jamaica, with all the Jamaican people suffering, we want investment grade and growth.
Yeah, don't worry about that. We're dealing with spirituality right now, so we don't want to bring a new thing, but I appreciate what you're trying to do, but it's okay. Let's keep it within the realm of what we're talking about spirituality and the power of what we have inside of us. All right, thank you, sir. We're going to talk with you again. Hopefully you'll join me when I am again on with another topic, but this is it for this one. We're shutting it down. Thank you, everybody. Have a blessed night, have a blessed week, and looking forward to see you again very soon. Because I see quite a few things out there that I might even give you a chance to bring back your point there, which I'm going to try to address, maybe even as early as tomorrow. All right. Thank you. Have a good night. To everybody who joined me, thank you. Have a blessed night, a blessed week, and we look forward to seeing you again soon when I come back with another program. Thank you. Good night.